Okay. Olivia, how was Univision?
It was so great. We had a really great response. I will tell you that I've done a lot of American TV before, and I've done a lot of Hispanic radio, but I hadn't done much. Definitely nothing this extensive of Hispanic national TV. And the anchors, they're just like American anchors. Like they've been there forever. Like they're really well known in this show. It's basically Good Morning America in Spanish. Everybody was so nice.
Hmm.
Typically, like they just like come on and they do their bit and then they leave. But it's just so funny to see like the cultural differences. Like while I was waiting, there was like people making like, Cuban espresso, and like it's just so, I don't know. When you're in Miami, it's like you're in a different country, really. It's hysterical.
Yeah.
But it was really good. We had a really good response. Hispanics typically tend to be, I would say, very concerned about their looks. So they're always looking for a product that helps with weight. Um, they tend to run high in diabetes and blood pressure. So they're always looking, like, you have to sort of know your market, right? And so they're always talking about those kind of angles will always help in that community. But it was really fun. They gave us a lot of coverage, which was really nice. We had some really good sales. So
Nice. Yeah, I was going to ask if how the product sales went.
yeah, they went
Was
pretty
it like,
solid.
yeah?
Yeah, I think it was like profit share. So we had to have on hand 1,000 units. We didn't sell quite 1,000, but they're keeping it on for 2 weeks. So, sales are still coming through. But basically, we
Mm.
offered the product at 50% off. And so if you're interested in trying the Wildcrafted product, it's a great way to try it because you can get all three for $57. I know a lot of people in the Facebook group have been interested because they've heard that product of ours will be in the Goodnature Marketplace. So I've
Hmm.
had a lot of inquiries about that. So if you want to try it, this is a great way to try all three Wildcrafted Beauty, Brain, and Energy, which are adaptogens that you can add to any food or drink. We add them to our latte menu, and then we also retail them in the jars. So it's a really good add-on for increasing your ticket price.
Awesome.
Thanks for asking.
This podcast brought to you by Wildcrafted Collection.
I always thought it was Univision, Olivia.
It's it's Univision in English.
Oh.
It's Univision in Spanish. Like it's Telemundo in English, but Telemundo in Spanish. Kind of like that.
Gotcha.
What? Didn't
Yeah.
you just say the same word twice?
That's just because you have an ear for it, Charlie.
All right, let's get started here. Y'all better be bobbing your head.
Oh, I'm bopping. I'm still in Miami
It's
mode.
another Friday. This week
Frozen.
I did it my way. I made lots of juice, and now I feel a boost. Baby say, oh, it's the way I make my juice. Pressing fruits and roots. This week I did it my way. Baby say, oh, now let's have some fun. There is nothing greater than Fridays at Goodnature.
Woo! What's up, my juice lovers? Welcome to Good Nature Radio. This is your host, Charlie Wetlaufer, joined by the two top juice business consultants in the world, Chef Ari Sexner and Olivia Esquivel. Of course, my brother, Eric Wetlaufer. What's up, Eric?
Hello.
You've been on in a couple episodes. How have you been?
I've been good. Pretty good. I don't know what's new. You want,
Olivia's
Alright.
wallpaper.
want some tidbits of my life?
The boys are very
I'm
excited
feeling
about my
like-
new backdrop.
Feeling like I need new wallpaper.
It's got to match your hair
that
color.
picture looks a little lonely back there. Like
I
you
know,
got
it's
lost in the
it's
woods back there.
Not even
a
a
little
summer
depressing.
photo. Yeah. You'll see. Next week, you'll see.
Nice. I like it. Good Nature Radio is the weekly Friday podcast. Well, it's not weekly anymore. It's a Friday podcast where the juicing industry comes to get help with starting and growing a juice bar, home-based juice business, or cold pressed juice delivery company. Brought to you by Goodnature, the world leader in commercial cold pressed juicers and juice business consulting. 100% family owned business. It was founded in 1976 by our dad, Dale Wetlaufer. If you'd like to send us a comment or question by leaving us a voice message, and we do have one in voicemail today to play later on, head over to goodnature.com/radio. It's where you can also request a free consultation with our juicing experts and download valuable resources. You can also catch up with us on the Goodnature Juicing Facebook group, now well over 3,000 members strong. That's over at facebook.com. Just search for Goodnature Juicing. All right, so a couple housekeeping items here. We are still running the sale on the M1 and X1 Mini. Talked about last week. It's a 15% off sale. You just have to have the order paid in full by the end of this month, by the end of March 2023. You get 15% off. We haven't run a sale like this since 2020, right when the pandemic hit, and nobody's buying juice machines, so this doesn't come around very often. So if you're thinking about buying an M1 or X1 Mini, now's the month to do it. Get ready for the summer rush at your juice business. I was at Expo West last week. I stopped in there for a quick day, did a walk around, and I wanted to just talk quickly about some trends I'm seeing in the sort of consumer packaged goods space. Definitely mushrooms and adaptogens are a huge trend right now. I mean, there's so many new mushroom and adaptogen companies. Olivia, you've been in the space for a while now. I think you're a bit ahead of the curve. Met some really cool founders of other companies while I was there. Going to be talking to them a little bit more about potentially joining the marketplace. Also, I will say that it seems like monk fruit is the new stevia. Monk fruit is in everything as a sweetener now, I noticed. I think as long as it doesn't have the fillers or erythritol on it, it's probably fine. I don't know. It's, a sweetener that comes from a fruit. Who knows? There are some very nice brands of Japanese matcha I met this year. It seems like matcha is also really growing in popularity. A lot of Japanese companies were there that have their organic matcha imported direct from Japan. There's even one booth where they had like a little area where you sit down on this, low sort of Japanese bench and sit Indian style. They actually had a lady dressed in the Japanese silk actually making like traditional matcha and like serve it to you in a little teacup. It was really cool. It was like a little escape from the craziness.
Is there a big line for that?
Surprisingly, no. Seems like people want their free coffee and chocolate mostly. Yeah. Caught up with some acai suppliers. There's a cool new product that a couple of the suppliers have, which is acai sorbet. So it's like acai, like you frozen acai, but they make it into puree and they add sugar, and it's really sweet, like sorbet. It was delicious. I think it's an interesting consideration if you're running a juice bar to have it as a product. Like pretend you had sort of like an ice cream counter where you like scoop out the sorbet, give it to people as sort of like a healthy treat. So that was pretty cool. What else? It's just craziness. Expo West, for anyone who hasn't been, it's in Anaheim at the conventions.
I say every year that I'm going, and I couldn't make it this year because I was in Miami, but I'm going next year. I just think it's so important to see, like you said, what trends are coming. Did you see a lot of functional water lines, like water with mushrooms or water with? That's one thing I've been talking to a lot of clients about. Is Ari and I were just talking about it. Well, I'll save it for maybe a pro tip, but never mind.
Not a lot of waters. Of course, there's always water and energy drinks and stuff, but I would say I saw a bit less of that this year than in the past. And seemed like, and not much juice there. There's a couple brands, but just like core energy shots and Suja and like the big ones everybody's familiar with. Right. Malk was there, the almond milk brand I like from Austin. Yeah. They're making. I asked them if they still use Goodnature machines. She said no, so that made me a little sad. But
what are they using?
It was still fun to.
Are they?
I don't know.
like
Usually
a
when these
co-packer or something?
usually when these almond milk companies get to a certain size, they switch to more of a industrial process where it's like grinding the almonds up into such a fine paste that you don't even know it's in the beverage. So you're getting like almost 100% yield. So instead of pressing the almond milk out of the almonds, you're just sort of blending it all into one sort of emulsified liquid. I don't know if that's what they're doing, but I would just assume that's what they're doing because that's what most of the larger brands tend to do when they can build out whole industrial factories and stuff.
Are they HPP?
I think so. I'm not sure. They're either HPP or heat pasteurized.
I feel like, isn't there something where you can't HPP milk?
You just have
Olivia,
to
can
do
you talk a little
more.
closer to the
Oh,
mic,
sorry.
please?
Isn't there something where
Yeah.
you can't HPP milk?
Eric, were you going to answer this? Or?
Sorry, someone came to my door. You have to do more of an HPP process, right?
Yeah,
You have to
right.
do like higher temp and longer. So just
Mhm.
more of it. But I think you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to hold it for something like 45 minutes or something.
Because I know
crazy,
my
but-
co-packer, when we were doing HPP, would not do our milk products. That's why I asked.
I did read an article recently too that a brand is HEP in all their juices, and then their milks have to run through the.
Mhm.
There's HTSD, and then there's a high temp one, correct? They
No,
were
that
doing
is HCSC is high temp, short time.
But
Yeah,
then there's ultra high. There's U8,
that
whatever
was
it is.
Yeah.
Oh,
UHT,
UHTSD,
ultra
yeah.
high temp.
Yeah.
Really, really,
Eric,
really
which
high
one is
temp.
flash pasteurization? Is that
I don't know. I used to
Yeah.
remember these, but there's like different grades. Shelf stable is one grade. Long shelf life is another one. Refrigerated. So there's just the more heat, the more pasteurization units you accumulate, and then the longer you apply that heat. So you can have higher temperature or longer, or high temperature and longer, or super high temperature, really short time. I think that's you. Anyway, I'm not even going to say it because I'm going to get it wrong. But I think flash is really high temperature, but for like a short amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah, there was an issue a few years ago where everyone had to rip all the almond milk off the shelves in the store because it turned out that their HPP process on almond milk wasn't meeting the guidelines.
And like
So all the
coconut
brands-
water, right?
Yeah, and
Was it
coconut water.
Coconut water.
I think. So they had to rip all this stuff off the shelves and sort of reevaluate. And so I think a lot of switched to pasteurization at that time.
I had sorry, just jump in. I had a call with a client from Canada, and they actually had to rip their cold brew off production because they don't like the process. You know, they were buying cold brew, but it has to be heated coffee or not cold brew. It was kind of
Hot brew.
odd. Yeah.
Interesting. There's something about. So the reason companies had to adjust the processing for HPP is because it's such low acidity. So if you have a high acid juice like orange juice, you don't have to HPP it as much as if you have something low acid like carrot juice. So things like carrot juice and almond milk, if you are doing HPP, you have to use an extra long process there. So that was a problem with that. What else? What else I see there? There's some, seems like a new trend is direct to consumer cereal brands. Like sort of better for you cereal that instead of selling through a grocery store, they're just selling direct on Instagram. So you may have seen ads for those.
Yeah, the only one that I've seen is Magic Spoon. Is that one
Yep.
of the ones you saw? Yeah.
Yeah, they were there. They had this giant booth, super colorful. Everybody was dressed in like these purple and yellow polo shirts, and it was one of the most interesting branding booths that I saw.
Super
really
strong
crazy.
branding. Yeah.
I can't imagine how much some of these companies spend on their trade show booths, but it's got to be a lot of money. But yeah, that's always one of the fun parts is walking around and seeing all the crazy branding and bright neon lights and people trying to get attention. Trying to think of anything else. Tons of chocolate, tons of coffee. I can't imagine trying to launch a coffee brand. It seems crazy. So
Any
much
healthy
competition.
French fries, Charlie?
There was a couple healthy French fries. We should get stuck near this healthy French fry booth at every trade show. But when you actually
Just
looked
fried
at the
potatoes. Yeah.
yeah, he'd be like, "Healthy French fries, guys. Here's some fries made with carrots." But then you actually look at the ingredients. The first ingredient is potato, and then there's like a little bit of carrot.
Like, this tastes like a regular French fry. I'm skeptical.
But it's
Oh, there
orange.
you go.
Yeah, tons of better for you chocolate, tons of coffee, a couple new protein brands that are like don't have any fillers or additives or anything.
What about like Impossible burgers and stuff? Like the non-meat meats, are those still front and center?
There's a
Haven't been in a few
couple,
years.
but
Yeah.
it wasn't a huge part of the show.
Yeah, I feel like those are falling out of favor.
Yeah, definitely. I think
Was
the
it busy,
public companies
Charlie?
are
Like,
struggling.
did it seem like there were a lot of people walking around? Like,
Oh my
people
god,
are back from
it was
COVID.
like shoulder
It's
to
packed.
shoulder.
Wow.
It was like walking through a nightclub in Miami. That's how I felt.
Wow.
Just like super
So
packed.
we were kind of doing the same thing, just in different parts of the world. And
Yeah, right. It's funny at these shows, and Eric will know what I'm talking about. You meet the founders or the people that run the cool little brands. It's so different than the guys running these sort of corporate processing companies. It's like, it's crazy. You'll meet these founders that are passionate and smiling and friendly and super excited to tell you about the product. And then like I walk up to this one acai supplier and it's like two old white guys in black suits and just like not friendly at all. Didn't give a shit that I know anything about juice bars. Just like, and of course, like you look at the ingredients of what they're selling and it's all fillers and emulsifiers and gums and total crap. They're in it for the money. They do business with the same type of people, old white guys in dark suits, you know?
Yeah.
And they're just like, I don't know, just no interest in working with people like that at all, for me personally.
Yeah, you can tell the authentic brands.
Yeah.
It's like their owners are working the booths and they're excited. And then you
Yeah.
can tell the brands that are going to 20 shows a year and they're on the grind and they're just another, acai brand. Or
Yeah, they're
something.
looking to get picked up by some big national franchise or something to add their pretend healthy thing to their hamburger menu or whatever.
Yeah,
The
they're
worst
just-
show, we used to go to the International Food Technology Show,
Oh, God.
and that was the absolute worst show. Because it was
Why?
all like, it was like, there was like a whole wing that was like additives. So you'd go
Oh.
and you're like eating these sample foods and they're like, bet you can't guess what you just ate. And you're like, oh God, do I want to know? Like,
And guess
this
what?
is
It's
a
clean label.
Yeah, it's technically made from vegetables, so you don't have to say it's a whatever. Like, oh my God. But
Yeah, you don't have to say it's
I'm
a
glad we don't go to that
hazardous
one anymore.
chemical.
yeah.
food technology show. So it was all like these amazing things you could now do with processing. So
Yeah, like patented ingredients that you don't have to put on the label and stuff.
or like
That-
the big trend last time I went was food colorings that were derived from like natural products, which natural food colorings are obviously better than the petroleum based ones, but it's still like now you can just say with beet extract, even though it's just food coloring. So on the list it says beet extract instead of like purple food coloring.
Yeah.
A pet peeve I have.
No, I was going to say I've always wanted to go to the fancy food show. Have you ever been to that one?
No.
It's called the
That's
Fancy
in
Food
Seattle,
Show.
right?
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just sounds
No.
like that's the place I'd want to be. Fancy food show, like what are they
Sounds
are they
really
giving
nice.
out like caviar and like
Probably.
Yeah.
like that sounds more like my pace right there.
I have eaten a 3D printed pancake at a trade show once. That was interesting.
Oh.
It,
I guess that would work.
The batter came out. It was at a 3D printing
Yeah.
trade show, but it was.
Interesting.
I'm like, what is this huge line? It's the only line at the whole trade show.
Pancake.
Olivia, have you been to Art Basel?
Yes. Yeah. And you know
I
what's
heard that's
another?
awesome.
It's amazing. And you know, there's actually a vegan plant-based show in Miami called Seed Food and Wine, SEED. Really strong too. One of my
Isn't that
favorites.
right around the
really.
same time as our
Yes.
puzzle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's in like November. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, November. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I got to get on these trade shows. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
Ari.
missing out.
Yeah, the thing I love about good natured clients, our juice bar customers, is they're the opposite of those old corporate guys in dark suits. You know, it's really passionate people that are into juice to make people healthier, give people healthier families and healthier lives, and just really improve their communities. It's such a joy to work in our industry versus a lot of those other industries. Like, you know, even the CPG beverage brands, right? Like canned water or energy drinks, that's totally different than our little juice industry.
Yeah, like today, a friend of mine was drinking that beverage Hint, and she was, she was having a procedure, so she had to like chug water, and I was like, "What is that? You know, like what's in there?" And she's like, "Oh, it's just water." And I'm like, "Why does it smell like grapefruit?" And she's like, "Well, it's water and grapefruit." And I'm like, "Okay, let me see the list," and it's got like this beautiful grapefruit on the front. I mean, fragrant like Bath and Body Works. Like you walked in and it was like whoosh, grapefruit in your face. And so like I look at the ingredients, water, natural flavors. I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean natural flavors? Like grapefruit natural flavors? Like what's like? There's nothing in there. So every single flavor that you look at, it just says water, natural flavors. It doesn't even list out the fruit that it supposedly smells like. So it's just crazy. Like
I have a huge pet peeve where I go to like a natural grocer, like a healthy grocery store. Every time I check out, they have all those random beverages I've never seen before.
Yeah.
I grab one and it's always like never good. It's always like something that's really perfumey or has like some sugar-free substitute, and they get me every time, and I'm a sucker,
You buy it?
I buy it every time.
Really?
I go out, I drink it, I'm like, oh, well, I just grab it because I'm in line.
Mhm.
So I don't read the label, and then
you
take a
don't
sip, I'm
have
like,
to
oh.
buy something just because you're standing next to the
I
case.
got it.
Or you
I'm just surprised that you buy it.
Well, it's a drink right there.
Yeah.
I'm thirsty,
I do try. I try all the new, like if I see some new beverage or something, I'll try it. I'm curious. But most of them are just rebranded, same concepts we've seen 1,000 times.
So I think that's a nice segue. I just want to give a quick marketplace update. Like the reason I went to Expo West is to try to, well, for one, I had a whole list of companies been talking about getting on the marketplace that I went to meet in person. Got to catch up with like 5 or 6 companies, founders and owners of companies, and then also to kind of hunt down new products. And one thing I tell you for sure, that anything that we sell in the Goodnature Marketplace is going to be carefully considered and looked at, and we're not putting anything on the marketplace that you have to question whether or not it's really natural and whether it's got any sort of hidden fillers or ingredients or artificial sweeteners or anything. So
Nothing tricky. That's our rule.
So I'm excited about that. And I think that's really important to the companies that are coming on, that they know that people that come to the marketplace are going to come there seeking only the best stuff. So I think it'll be like, that's what Whole Foods used to be when it was a smaller company. You could go there and know that they're sort of vetting everything. I feel like that's what Erewhon Market in LA is like now. Or maybe Natural Grocer, although the story that Ari just told maybe makes me question that. But
you do have to have your guard up all the time because everyone's trying to make you think you're buying something that's like clean. And then you got to look at the label and you got to figure out what's this ingredient mean.
Yeah. First time someone puts down a label, it means something. And then these other companies look at it and be like, oh, people are paying more for this thing. So then they just start using it as marketing. And then pretty soon that statement doesn't mean anything anymore. So it is kind of tricky. All right, we've got a voicemail from Andrew here. Let me play this.
Hey y'all, this is Andrew from Houston. Would you guys be able to touch on some of the competitors we're seeing in the market as far as health juice beverages, specifically BioLite, and there was another one, I can't remember the name of the company, but a powdered green juice. Thanks so much. Bye.
So I had never heard of BioLite. I looked it up. It looks like a electrolyte drink. I guess I'm a little confused at why that's a competitor to the juicing industry. I'm not totally sure. It just looks like it's sort of like Gatorade type drink.
I have seen a lot of juice bars. I'm thinking maybe he's coming from the perspective of I've seen some juice bars picking up products like that to sell in their cooler next to their juices. And so I'm wondering if that's what he means, whether or not that's a good idea to pick up. Like I've seen people sell like Vita Coco and some other, CPG products in their cooler. And I'll tell you, it's something that I've been thinking about lately in my own shops because I've never done it before. I've always been like, well, no, if they're going to drink something, they're going to drink mine. I'm going to have better margin, and that's where I make my money. And I've developed my brand now pretty wide. So like, I was saying we have a line of waters, of functional waters that have our wildcrafted adaptogenic collection in it, which has been really great and something I really recommend for other juice bars to look into ways to bring in a product, hopefully that you're making in-house that is really going to lower your food cost, but also lower your retail price as well. So if you can offer like a $4 or $5 16-ounce bottle to just give some variety in your cooler of price points. But I'm thinking that's where he's coming from, whether or not it's a good idea to bring in some of these consumer packaged goods to sell in your juice bar. For me, if that's the angle he's taking, some of the ones I have been looking at recently have been a little bit more advanced than just like an electrolyte water. I've looked at some kombuchas that are canned. I've looked at some functional mushrooms that are sort of like a cold brew situation, but something that I'm not already offering. So I don't know. I'm thinking maybe that's where he was going with that.
But anyway, Andrew here, he said another powdered drink that's popular. Couldn't remember the name. I think he's probably talking about Athletic Greens, which run like a billion ads everywhere. They sponsor every podcast that's even remotely like adjacent to sports. Like they sponsor Joe Rogan and every other podcast.
Speaking of that, this episode was brought to you by
Athletic Greens. They probably would sponsor us if I reached out. I think so. I actually posted about this on Instagram like a year ago. I said I predict they're burning millions of dollars a quarter on advertising, and that they're not actually a profitable company, and that they're probably going to end up going out of business because they spend too much on advertising, or like getting acquired for less money than they've raised because they're just spending so much money on ads. And I've seen less lately. Maybe they're finally running out of money, but I don't know. They advertise it like you can just mix dried powdered greens in with your water, and that's as good as drinking raw juice. I don't think that's true.
I think
I'm not sorry, go.
Supplements and like starter shakes and stuff like that will always have a place adjacent the juice industry, but it's not as fresh, and there's people that want to get it right fresh, and it's just different. It has its place. People take supplements, and that they're competing, but not quite competing with the fresh juice, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's that process is so important. There's so many different ways to, essentially dehydrate and blend the product. You could go high temp short time or high temp ultra. So,
and you don't know how they're extracting stuff. Are they extracting with alcohol and then evaporating it? Are they adding anti-caking agents to the powder so it doesn't clump up, which they don't have to put on the label if they do that because it's a processing aid. So like processed stuff is just a little bit more mysterious. It's not to say that it's all bad, because I'm sure there's lots of really good stuff out there. But for those seeking fresh fruits and vegetables, it's a concession to get powdered or shelf stable.
I mean, so I guess to answer Andrew's question, it's really not a competitor for our industry. I think if you're going to offer something that is a powder, it might almost devalue your own brand, in my opinion. Because if you're giving it as a choice as a consumer, you're saying like either pick A or B, and we support both of these things. So it's probably, if it's a powdered situation, different than like an E3 Live or a spirulina or something like that, which obviously we all use. I don't know that it would really align too well in terms of educating the public on who we are as an industry and what our goals are.
Yeah, I agree. It's like two different customers, sort of. It's like you might get somebody cross the line from being a supplement shake drinker to buying real juice, but buying the powder stuff is way cheaper, can sit in your cupboard forever. So someone that's okay with that probably isn't going to spend $10 on a juice, but it's possible.
Yeah, and definitely try not to use the same products you're selling, like you mentioned, Olivia. You know, like if someone has some kind of beverage, you don't want that competing with your juice sales. Absolutely. So some different products that align with your kind of mission statement, always a great option.
All right, let's move on here. Ari, lately you've been asking people have been asking you frequently about filling juice up to the top of the bottle or leaving a little space of air in there for the quality of the juice. What say you, sir?
Yeah. So I get this question a lot, you know, and they ask, you know, topping off the bottles when you put the cap on and a little juice spills over, thinking that there's not going to be any air space in there. And what their idea behind that is that it's not going to oxidize, you know, or, you know, speed up the shelf life process, but there's no way to actually get all the air out of the juice bottles. You know, it's more of the way I fill up a juice bottle is what does it look full visually? You know, if it's topped off or it's got a tiny little bit of space in there, and then you got to stick with that. You're not extending the shelf life or preventing oxidation by topping it off. So,
yeah. So on those big milk bottle style bottles, you're probably just wasting an extra ounce of juice.
Yeah, spilling juice, cleaning the sides of the bottles. Those large processing facilities, they have special equipment, correct? Where they shoot gas into the bottles to kick the air out, so it's completely oxygen free. Is that correct? Or
yeah,
I've read that a few places. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know which products they do it on because I believe that some of the bacteria that grows in juice is anaerobic, meaning it doesn't need oxygen. So that could actually speed up the multiplication of those. So I don't even know if that would apply to raw juice or not. Eric, you brought up, do you want to talk about your experience with some things turning into sort of like a gelatin?
Yeah, it's something Ari and I were chatting about a little bit today. Sometimes I buy frozen blueberries, let them thaw and squeeze them, and put them in my ginger shots. And I've also noticed this with fresh beets, where sometimes it'll turn like a gel. And yeah, I don't know if it's a pectin going on or Ari, what's happening in there?
Yeah, I get a lot of calls when it happens, people freaking out. It's always people don't juice blueberries, but I imagine if they juice them more often, then that I probably get calls on that. But carrots and beets for sure, I always get it. I get the call, and it's kind of a weird thing. It has something to do with temperature, I'm sure, because if it's a little bit cooler, that's kind of where it's activated. Every time that I get the calls, it's usually three elements. It's the temperature of the product, it's the acidity level, and kind of the sweetness factor, you know, and it's kind of a slim level where all those things happen. You get jelly at the end of the day. So there's quick fixes to that. It's just basically adjusting the citrus slightly. and usually that solves the issue. Yeah,
Just
but
adding a
we
little
get that
more
quite
lemon?
often for sure. Yeah, either
Or
adding a
less.
little or taking a little out
Yeah.
usually fixes it.
Yeah, I think it's like tons of pectin with all that acid and sugar actually turns into like it's actually a gel that you. It's kind of
Mhm.
like gelatin.
Hey, that could be a
Pectin
product
is
though.
like a binder. Could be.
Could have
Yep.
like green juice jello.
But I find that if you shake it, like when I've seen that happening where it's like kind of starting to gel, if you shake that once, it seems to not happen again. Like it's
Yeah.
just if you break it up, it doesn't redo. But
Mhm.
It's kind of like that
Yeah,
issue.
produce is weird sometimes.
Yeah. Kind of like that issue we call flocking, where if the sort of acidity and grinding and everything sort of align to this certain formula, then you start to get this little separation. You can see all these things start to separate into these little clumps, which
Mhm.
it's not really jelly, but it's just sort of molecules clumping up. Looks almost like curdled milk or something. And it just, something
Yeah,
about
that's
the
that's
pectin
what
and
I've
acidity.
experienced. That's what I've experienced more than the clumping. It's like I can look at the juice sometimes, and it does happen a lot with carrot, where it kind of just it's
Mm-hmm.
not slimy, but I can just tell the texture is a little bit different. You know what happens a lot at our shop, Chef? I don't know if you've noticed this, but our ginger settles so hard at the bottom, and it almost has like this really thick layer of ginger at the bottom of the bottle.
Yeah,
Is that because we're putting
It's-
it in the wrong order, or is it just because it's so much heavier?
that's
Is it
that's a
just-
starch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That'll just
Yeah.
always happen.
And
That's
even
just
when you
gravity.
Yeah. But even when you shake it, sometimes it doesn't come loose.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Sweet potatoes do the same thing because there's a lot of starch
Uh-huh.
in sweet potatoes,
Yeah.
but it's like a super hard, slimy film that builds up.
Yeah.
That's like when you buy cornstarch. That's what that is. That's that powder.
Yeah.
You know?
and surprisingly, tiger nuts have a bunch too.
Hmm.
Oh, really?
But one way to fix that is just letting it settle. If you're doing a large batch, let it settle as it's cooling down, and then pour it off slowly. Not disturb that, and that'll just stick to the bottom for sure.
So
Isn't
just
that
don't
where a lot of the
include it.
flavor comes from, though, for ginger, or no?
I don't. I've tried it before, and I didn't really taste anything from it.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's move on to pro tips.
I have another question about ginger shots since we're on the topic. So I put crazy amount of lemon in my ginger shots, and my recipe varies based on what I'm juicing. Sometimes like cranberries or something. If you have crazy high acid, like sour, how long of a shelf life can you expect for something like a ginger shot, like a spicy, super sour, really high acid thing?
Depends who's asking. If you're a local inspection agency, if you're running an operation and you're selling to the public, you have a 7-day shelf life.
Okay.
That product will be extremely acidic. It will be below 3.5. So it is technically good for much longer than that, up to 3 weeks. But you need to do a variance through the health department, and that involves a little bit of pH testing from a lab. It's very simple. I think the test is like $15 a sample. And you can actually get a variance where you can hold that product in your reach-ins and grab and goes for 14 days, 3 weeks sometimes. But yeah, it's completely safe. It basically, anything below 3.5 turns to a different category that they call non-potentially hazardous food for that amount of time.
Yeah, I think we've done that before, Eric, and we've gotten to 21 days with a variance.
Wow. Pretty good.
Mhm.
All right. Let's go into pro tips. Eric, I know you've got a hard stop in a few minutes. Do you want to start us off?
My pro tip that I was racking my brain to think of another pro tip is, so I've shopped a lot of juice bars, and a lot of juice bars, I don't know what the real rules are, and it's been in different states and everything, but some people put the expiration date, they write that on the label, and this is fresh juice, so you have a certain amount of shelf life. And some people also put the production date. I as a consumer, I love to see the production date because I don't know what their shelf life is. And if the only thing I see is an expiration date, I go, expires in 1 day. I wonder if that's a 7-day shelf life, a 1-day shelf life. I don't know. So if you're exercising a really short shelf life, I love to see that production date so close to the expiration date because that makes me think, wow, this place is making fresh juice all the time, and this is maybe just made yesterday or something like that. So put the production date on. That's my pro tip.
That's good to hear. The first operation I did that was certified organic. We were forced to have 2 dates on the bottle. We had to have the date it was made and then a use by date.
Mm-hmm.
And we were really frustrated by it. But yeah, it does seem kind of cool that it is a short shelf life of a fresh product.
Yeah, it's something I do look at. I know it's probably a pain to put both, but I find it valuable as a consumer.
That's definitely the date I care about. Is it produced on
the production date?
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotta have at least one of the dates, but preferably the production date. I've seen no dates sometimes. That scares me.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Either Ari or Olivia can go first, but there's a chance they'll steal each other's pro tips. So let's.
It's been done. It's been done before.
We'll let Ari go first this week.
Okay, okay, fine.
Oh, okay. Olivia
I'm gonna
decided
forget
she's
mine
gonna
while
go.
he talks.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going, Ari. So my pro tip, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but find a way to bring down the retail price in your fridge by expanding your offerings. So talking about maybe bringing in a water line. There's some really cool products out there that I know a lot of us use. Like, I love to play with Blue Magic from E3 Live. It's a blue-green spirulina. Create some really beautiful colors, particularly now for the spring and summer. You can start to play with some florals like lavender and rosemary. And really what you're trying to do is create some flavored waters. So you want a product that just has a really low food cost. It helps offset some of your higher food cost items. They're just really great for, particularly as like teenagers start to come in and they want to be at your hip juice bar, but don't have 10 or 12 bucks to drop on a juice. Giving them a $4 or $5 price point with basically a perceived value of a 16 ounce or 12 ounce bottle would be a really great way to bring in some extra cash this spring and summer, and be looking for things like watermelon coming into play that'll have a really high yield and a nice flavor to also give you some really good food cost.
Well, I'm going to jump in with mine because mine was very similar. So
I
as I was
hop off,
walking,
guys.
okay, see Eric.
Bye, Eric.
As I was walking Expo West, I kept thinking like, oh, this would be a great thing for juice bars to sell the juice bar that's not juice, right? Something with a long shelf life, something that's packaged, something they can have at the counter or have a shelf set up with other products and sell a profitable item that they don't have to worry about producing and making and going bad and spoiling and all that stuff. So that's kind of similar to what you're saying, Olivia. I think just like driving up the profitability of your juice bar by even selling other brands and other products, I think is a great idea.
Yeah, I think that's sort of what Andrew was going after. So just like Chef said, just make sure it's different enough from something that you're creating that you're not kind of shooting yourself in the foot by losing margin on your product and pushing their brand instead of yours. So look for something that's really different than what you're offering.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you're 100% right, Olivia, too, on the price point for those enhanced waters and stuff. That's one of my biggest pet peeves is when you go into juice bars and they're selling $10 a bottle of juice and they have a flavored water for like $8.
Yeah.
That's we know water's in
don't
there.
you just feel like they're like holding you down and stealing your wallet or something when you see that?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, they might get away with it for some, but the people that know what's in there, it's real downer
it
for that.
leaves me a very, very bad feeling when they're selling like a lemon water for $8 and that's right next to a juice that's also $8.
I agree. And I feel like we see a lot of clients like that who all of their juices are $8 or all of their juices are $9. And I think we've talked about this before, but it really bothers me as a consumer. And it bothers me as an operator because it just feels like it's devaluing the other things in your case that maybe you're 8, 9, 10 ingredients deep. It's just, I feel like when you go to the grocery store, there's a yogurt for $2, there's a $3 yogurt, and there's a $4.50 yogurt, and you make your decision there. But if it were me, if they were all $4 yogurts, I'm going to pick the one that has the most benefit in it, which is obviously going to have a higher food cost and a less margin for the producer. So, yeah, some variety in there is really important.
There was one juice bar I went in where they had like the beet juice and the green juice, and then they had like something in the ingredients on the front of the label said ginger, apple, lemon, filtered water. I purchased it and I tasted it. I'm like, this tastes like pure water almost. And I look, then the ingredients on the back are in a different order. Filtered water, lemon, honey, ginger, whatever. I'm like, oh my God, I just got ripped off. Like $9,
like
you know.
One of those hint bottles, right?
Natural
It had like
flavors.
essence of apple and the rest of water.
Yeah, that's one thing. When they list ingredients intentionally in the wrong order, that is one thing that drives me crazy. That is so tricky.
That is, no, yeah. I will say that is something that I've noticed, and a lot of juice bars don't realize that that's like a thing. Make sure that you're listing your ingredients just like you would in a recipe from greatest to least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 All right, Ari, you got a pro tip for us?
Thought you guys were going to forget. We got sidetracked. Yeah. So my pro tip is have weekly meetings with your staff, management, everyone all together. You know, you don't have to do daily ones. They're great, but at least once a week, I think is extremely valuable for a lot of reasons. Number one is kind of just talk with the staff, find out what's kind of your bottleneck, what's slowing the process down, kind of experiment on how you can speed up the process, improve the process, improve the quality of product. I think is extremely important. It gives sense of ownership to the staff. So I think at least once a week, and do it on shift. Okay, don't do a pre-shift. A lot of places where they're really strict on labor might have issues with that. I've seen it quite often. But also something that Charlie, you had myself do when we were in Goodnature, you know, where over in Vegas, where the produce purveyors, they would bring in like a sample of a few products that were kind of unique or interesting. And just everyone get together, try the product, something new that they might not have tried before, because you want your employees to be passionate about what they're doing, you know, and after being repetitive for so long, if they don't have unique, interesting stuff that happened that kind of expands their knowledge, they could lose that. So definitely bringing in new, unique products to try, experiment with stuff, is a great way to keep that passion going.
I like it. Yeah, I think if you can put people in an environment where they feel like they're learning something, it greatly improves the morale. Because as soon as people feel like they're doing something just for the paycheck, I think you run into problems. You want them feeling like they're there for more than the paycheck. Because nobody feels like their time is worth what you're paying them if it's just for the paycheck. Doesn't matter if they're making $20,000 a year or $100,000 a year. People always think they're worth more if they don't enjoy what they're doing.
Especially in the food and beverage industry, where like chefs, they get out of college and, you know, work for free for years. It's it's tough, man. Like, just because it's a great restaurant. I get it. I understand that if you can financially do that, but you know, it's a tough decision to make for sure.
Those pre-shift meetings always rub me the wrong way. I worked at a couple of jobs where there's a pre-shift meeting. And I'm like, you're having me here 15 minutes early and you're not paying me. And it's requirement. It kind of feels like work.
I work for a company, nameless, of course. They had pre-shift 30 minutes before clocking in, and it actually they won a agreement, and it was something like over 5 years of back pay.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was for those 30 minutes every day.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Makes sense. All right, and that is our show today, guys. Ari, you're traveling for a couple of weeks starting tomorrow.
Yeah.
So you won't be in the next episode, but we'll see you when you get back. And we'll see everybody a couple of weeks.
Have fun, Ari.
I will.
Yeah, have fun.
Thank you guys.
See you guys.
Pressing fruits and
Bye.
roots. This week I did it my way. Baby say, oh, now let's have some fun. There is nothing greater than Fridays at Goodnature.